Over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to teach you how to install a Pelican whole house water filter and salt-free conditioner. If you have white deposits on your shower heads, dishwashers, around your water faucets, or if you've got dry or itchy skin, or if you even smell odors in your water, chances are you need a water filter. And while there's several on the market, the one I'm going to be installing here is from a company called Pelican. I was able to go online and find a actual water report. I sent it to the Pelican folks, and they were able to help me pick the right filter. So we're going to cover a lot today in this 30-minute session. We're going to learn how to install a water filter, install a water-free conditioner or a salt-free water conditioner, and hook everything up to our house. I've got PVC between the water filters, but I've got copper in my house. I'm going to teach you how to work with both of them. This is a relatively long process here. It's all right out of the owner's manual. I'm not doing anything different. We're going to talk about getting started, unboxing your filters, general pipe routing, area selection. I've broken the installation down into 2 phases. This is the bulk of what the video is all about here. And of course, what to expect during and after your installation and some maintenance tips on getting the most out of your filter and keeping it up to full operating conditions. A couple words of caution. During phase 2, which we'll get to in a little while, you'll need to shut the water off, the main water off of your house. So if you have some emergency needs or some people that have to have water for medical reasons or whatever, plan your time accordingly, because you're not going to be able to use the water when you're in during phase 2. A few other warnings: check your local building codes, check if you need a permit to install a water filter, refer to your Pelican owner's manual for any warranty issues with the do-it-yourself type things. And these are the steps that I'm doing, but proceed at your own risk. What I'm doing here may not exactly work for you. You might have a different type of plumbing and whatnot. This does take a while to do. Assessing the layout and where you're going to put your filter and pipes is about an hour. Buying the parts is about an hour. Phase 1 is about 4 hours, and phase 2 actually is about 2 to 3 hours as well. So it does take some time to install. After I installed this, what I found easy was putting the pipes together, doing the general layout. I thought it was actually fairly easy to do. What was hard is determining the pipe routes and how to get it to tap into your existing system, and of course fixing water leaks. The scary part is when you're going to cut your main water line off and finding any water leaks after the fact. Step 1, tools and supplies. Brand new garden hose. Very important. You don't want to be flushing your system out with a moldy hose with a bunch of junk in it. I have copper pipes in my house. I'm going to need a torch, some flux, some solder. I'm also going to be using PVC for the interconnections, and make sure you have good glue, good primer, and some tools to cut things with, pipe tape and some plumber's putty as well. You're going to need a variety of tools, tape measures, drills, wrenches, and whatnot. You're just going to have to figure that out as you go. Most importantly, of course, is safety glasses. I bought a wide variety of elbows, couplings, screw-in elbows, screw-in fittings. Like I said, I've got copper, so I'm going to have some copper fittings as well. It's best to lay this out kind of mentally, or at least on a piece of paper, before you go to the store and buy anything. That way you can get the right kind of stuff. Also, you're going to need to get a good drill bit and some good screws to be able to mount some of the units to your concrete walls. Unboxing, just like Pelican says on the website, they come in a couple of boxes. The filter is in one, and the conditioner is in another one. Third box came with all the bypass valves, all the fittings that you need, hose hookups, O-rings, split ring washers, pretty much everything that you need in here. It's a relatively easy, kind of no tools required for this part of it. They also give you a sediment filter, a big Manley filter with a big Manley bracket. And I actually purchased enough filters to last me for 5 years. So I got several filters and all the O-rings and the special grease that you need to install your sediment filters. The boxes that there's another box of bypass valves and whatnot. You get 2 boxes. They look exactly the same. The filters look exactly the same, except there is a label on the front of each one of them. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this a bit. One is for your whole house water filter. I will be referring to this as your carbon filter, so just kind of keep that in mind. and a second one for your salt-free water conditioner. I'll just refer to this as the conditioning filter. That's how you can tell them apart by that label. General pipe route. This is where it gets a little bit hard to figure out exactly how you want to tie in your filters to your existing water lines in your house. Generally, starting from the left, I've got copper, so I've got a copper fitting that feeds into some PVC fittings, goes through some elbows, through a filter. I'm not showing all the individual pipes here, but it fits right into the sediment filter, goes into the sediment filter first, through some more elbows, so on and so forth. These are all 1-inch PVC that I'm using here. There is a mix of some threaded PVC and some regular old push-in type PVC. Notice I've got a couple of valves here. These are isolation valves, so that when I want to change my sediment filter, I just simply open the valve or close the valves up and I can change it very easily. I don't have to worry about going out to the street and shutting the main water off. Anyway, from the sediment filter, this goes into another series of fittings. The stuff in black came from the Pelican in terms of the kit. All the white stuff I got at the local hardware store. Goes through these bypass valves. These are all kind of screw, and I'll show you how these all fit together a little later on. But this bypass valve here, you're going to need one per each of the filter, complete with these little split washers, O-rings, and so on and so forth. This water goes into your carbon filter. It has to go into the carbon filter first, which I'm not showing here. And then out through a bunch of more fittings that all kind of screw together. PVC glue to put the PVC pipes and whatnot together. And routes through the center section. I'll be referring to this sort of like a manifold, if you will. And then it goes into another series of fittings and goes in the other bypass valve, eventually taking you to the salt-free water conditioner. So it's sediment filter, carbon filter, conditioner in that order of flow. Keep in mind the sediment filter has got a direction to it, so make sure you're watching the direction arrows when you're installing it. Then, of course, out to some more PVC fittings into a copper type of a fitting. Now, if your house has PVC, it'll be a little easier to hook it up. If it has CPVC, I'll cover that in a little while. You're going to need some screw-in fittings to marry the PVC and the CPVC. Like I said, I will cover a little in a few minutes on how to put all these little pieces together. It might look a little scary, all these little O-rings and split ring washers and whatnot, but they all snap together and they all screw in, so it's a pretty straightforward process. The hard part here is just figuring out how to get all of these things in the right spot in your house and hooked up to your main water line. Area selection. Pelican suggests that you can put the filters in your garage, in a utility room, underneath your house, outside, which I'm going to put mine underneath my house. There's a couple hot water tanks off into the abyss to the far left, and in the corner is where I'm going to put them. The copper pipe is where the main water line is coming in. That's where I'll be tapping into to put the filter between the lines somewhere. I put some small pads, if you just saw that a second ago, to let the filters sit on. Give yourself some good clearance between the wall and your filter here. As you can see, there's not much clearance. I did find some threaded elbows that are going to let me reduce that clearance a little bit or give me some more clearance. But I think at the end of the day, these tanks are here about 8 inches from the wall or so. I think I actually ended up putting them about 10 or 11 inches from the wall, just to give me a lot of clearance so I can get things in and out. And more importantly, I could align that pipe exactly with the copper line, so it minimized the number of elbows and turns. Basically, I tried to get my PVC fitting so it was a straight shot into the actual copper. I'm kind of trying to simulate that here with that little wooden stick. Off to the right is where the sediment filter is going to go. I'd like to get as much of this stuff in line as I possibly can, so I have to go and pipe in a bunch of elbows. The section I'm showing right now is the part I'm actually going to cut away. It's my main line here to the house. I'm just going to simply tap into that so the water goes in the sediment filter, through the sediment filter, through the other carbon and conditioners, into the main port of the house. Step 5, this is the big part here, installation phase 1. You have to pre-soak your carbon filter for 48 hours. Do not skip that step. We're also going to install the sediment filter, and we're going to build some connection manifold that I talked a little bit about earlier, and some other basic pipe runs. If you notice there's an inlet and an outlet, make sure you get the water going in the inlet for the flush. Just simply take your bypass filter, and you can see how this works, that when it's in bypass mode, or actually in filter mode, the water goes through the filter, or through the valve it is, into the filter, and then back out. When it's in bypass mode, it skips the filter completely and sort of bypasses it. That way you could take the filter out if you needed to do some maintenance work or change the carbon media. You don't have to take all the piping off your system here. Notice that I put the split ring washers. This all came from the factory, all set up. You don't have to worry about that. The O-rings, just check them to make sure nothing fell off and nothing is cracked. If you notice that I put some white plumber's tape, you don't need to do this. This is not for leak protection. This is just because plastic parts, when they get screwed together, they can bind up a little bit and be a little bit hard to take off. So this is just a deinstallation if I ever need to do this. For the carbon filter, put the bypass filter on and leave it on. You do not need to take it off. Don't get your wrench out, your channel locks out there, and crank these nuts down. Just take your time and put it on finger tight only. I'm actually going to put it on finger tight with just a little bit of human force, but I'm not going to use any wrenches to crank these down. The O-rings do all of the sealing. Next, hook up your brand new hose to your water faucet and put it in the inlet side of your carbon filter. The company did give you a little fitting to hook into your filter, to hook to the hose, but they didn't give you one for the downside. So all of that water that's coming out is going to go all over my floor. So I'm running to the hose right now to turn it off. All you want to do in this step here is just fill up the filter and shut the bypass valves off and remove the hose. You're done with this part of the step here. Just leave that thing sit for 48 hours. There's water inside there. Just leave it alone. Let's go ahead and install the sediment filter next. Find a nice convenient place on a wall or wherever. Make sure you have enough clearance to get all of your fittings in, your pipes run to it, and if you can, try to get a straight shot from your water main line, for the copper pipe there, to your sediment filter, and a straight shot from the output of that sediment filter into your first filter, the carbon filter. Try not to put your screws in grout lines or the mortar lines in the brick. They're very weak and they don't hold very well. You want to put your screw holes right in the actual brick itself. I just used a 1/4 inch masonry bit, drew 4 holes by marking them, and I'm going to use a drill to drill these screws. And I had to buy these extra. They did not come with the kit. So you can see that I've got a couple screws. They're holding that bracket on and the sediment filter on, and all I really needed to do was just get a bit, take the concrete, the masonry screws, and just drive them right into those preset holes. You can't see this, but the location of the sediment filter is going to be perfectly in line with the inlets of the sediment, or the carbon and the conditioning filters. So I'm minimizing the number of elbows that I have to put in the system here. If you mess up and you don't get your bracket very tightly on, you're going to see that that can easily break off. What I didn't show you here is some of the rough fitting that I'm doing for that PVC pipe. This is on the inlet side of the sediment filter. I've got an elbow, a couple couplings, and so on and so forth. This is all dry fit for right now. I'm just trying to get my pipes to the right length. Then I'm going to take them off and show you how to actually install these things. So if you ever work with PVC or copper, stick around. 3 types of pipes. There's CPVC, the orange color, the gray PVC, which is gray in color, and the white PVC. Unfortunately, the glues are not compatible, so if you have CPVC in your house by yellowish looking lines, make sure you get the correct glue. Here we've got some PVC pipes I need to cut. I used a hacksaw for this, used some sandpaper to knock those burrs off and to prepare them for the gluing. Step number 1 is get some the primer and that little Q-tip thing, just roll it around there on the pipe and the elbow side or the coupling, whatever you happen to use there. What this does is this etches the plastic and cleans all the junk off of your PVC. Then when you glue it, you're guaranteed to get a nice tight fit. Sorry for the lack of focus here. I'm using the PVC glue now. Even though it's kind of purplish looking, the glue is clear. Put it on the on both fittings, the male and the female side, and don't be sloppy here. Get a nice amount of glue on, and just put the two together. You have 15 seconds to set this, otherwise throw it away and start again. So you got about 10 seconds to 15 seconds and it's done. It's dry. It's that fast. So measure twice and cut once. These little fittings here that came with the kit, just put the just assemble it the way I have here, so the threads are on the outside. Take that split ring washer, that white washer, and put it on the interiormost groove. If you're worrying about it falling out, there's a small recession in that giant nut there that keeps the split ring from kind of falling out. Nice design, actually. And let's pop the O-ring on the outside. And last, put a lot of this plumber's tape on the threads of that. This is going to get screwed into a PVC coupling. If you don't use plumber's tape or plumber's putty, it will leak. Trust me, I forgot to do it on one of them. Then screw it into your coupling. I'm making the manifold piece right now that's going to go from one tank to the other. Even though I mentioned hand tight only, this is the part where you want to get some channel locks and be very, very gentle on tightening this fitting up. You don't want to do it too hard, you don't want to break it, but you don't want it to leak. So give it a little bit of force when you're putting the that black piece of coupling inside of your little manifold. So I'll show you where this goes in just a minute, but just check everything. Got the O-rings on, the split ring washers on, everything is assembled correctly. This is top quality work right here. We're going to go ahead and dry fit this thing and you'll see how it all fits together. Far part of the screen is the carbon filter, closer is the actual conditioner, and it just goes to the outlet on one and the inlet on the other, and you can see how easy all of this screws together. I'm just doing a dry fit now. I'm going to take this right back off just to make sure everything fits properly before I move on to the other set of pipes that we're going to pre-make. I'm not going to put anything on that's going to come in phase 2, but at least for the 48 hours that I have to wait, I could do some of the plumbing work while we're waiting. Next, I'm going to add some couplings to the sediment filter. I would recommend not using tape here. I would use plumber's putty. Tape tends to leak. In fact, it leaked on me after I put it on, so I had to take it off and do it again. So these are 1-inch PVC valves. They just or couplings. They just screw right in. And you might want to do it hand tight, but here I get the channel locks out and I crank it down so it's good and snug. You do not want this thing to leak. Otherwise, you're going to have to tear all your PVC out and redo it. Unfortunately, you can't take a PVC. You can't take it apart. Once it's glued, it's kind of done. So make sure you get a lot of plumber's putty or a lot of PVC pipe tape on there. All right, now I've got some parts already cut. Remember, I was dry fitting this earlier. I didn't really show you a good shot of that, but I've got some couplings, some elbows. There's my filter, and I'm going ahead and glue everything up. The way I like to work, I like to do small sections at a time, maybe 3 or 4 elbows maximum. Otherwise, you get too far ahead of yourself. You forget the order things go in. Things tend to dry up on you, and you just got to go do it all over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm priming some ends right now. Again, very important that you prime things to make sure you etch that PVC so the glue adheres to it very well. And take your time and just do a good job, and it'll save you a lot of rework in the long run. Just going to put the primer on the elbows, the small little sections of that 1-inch PVC, and the valve as well, and I'll just glue everything up. If you've never worked with PVC, trust me, it's extremely easy to work with. The hardest part is cutting the pipes to the right length so your finished product is the right distance. So you're going to want to measure a few times, maybe do a couple test cuts to make sure that you get the couplings to the right lengths, because after you put the elbows on there, it's going to make them a little longer. So just make sure you get things cut properly and dry fit it before you start to put the glue on, because once you put the glue on, there's no turning back. You can't get things out. All right, now just put some glue around the inside of the coupling, around the PVC parts as well, and just glue everything together. Again, 10 to 15 seconds, it's set up and you're done. You cannot get it out, so make sure you get it right. I'm about to install an elbow here. It's got to point directly down. What most people will do is they'll put the elbow on it saying 90 degrees wrong and twist it into shape. I don't really do that well here. I'm kind of squeezing it and twisting it as I'm putting it on so it gets a good bond between the two couplings there. But make sure that you get the alignment correct before you let that glue dry. Now, even though I say 10 to 15 seconds, that doesn't mean it's permanent. If you turn the water on, it probably wouldn't blow it apart, but within maybe 10 minutes, that's permanently glued But like I said, 10 to 15 seconds, you will not be able to move it with your by the force of your hands. Again, a key thing here is to make sure you get the flow arrow directions in the correct location. I'm going to be putting the inlet on the right-hand side and the outlet on the left-hand side, so make sure the arrow on the that sediment filter is in the correct orientation. Basically, the copper pipe that you see at the far left, I'm going to cut it below the filter and come up below the filter to for the inlet side of that. I'll show you that kind of an after picture when I'm all done with this. If you've never worked with copper, it's actually pretty easy to do. I've got a nice pipe cutting tool here. It's just a small cutter head, and it's like a clamp, like a C-clamp, really. So I've just cranked down the clamp a little bit with the right hand. I'm twisting the pipe with the left hand, and you twist it about 10 or 15 times, and it will make an impression with that cutter and cut the pipe right off for you. If you don't have one of these things, don't worry. A hacksaw works just as good. It's just a little tougher on the elbows. There you go. Now you got your coupling. I'm going to cut some more, and I'm going to solder everything up, or sweat it, as the pros call it. Some pros might be laughing at me right now for sanding the edges down or sanding these down, but I like to get everything nice and clean before I sweat everything together. The flux will do this, but I like to get the sandpaper out and clean the ends, just to get all the grime and the junk and all the little burrs off of it. I'll do the same thing for the elbows and the couplings. I'll put a little piece of sandpaper in there and scuff everything up. Extremely important. Get some paste flux and flux the outer inch or so of your copper pipes. Do that on the coupling and the actual pipe itself. What the flux does is it actually cleans the copper, the metal itself. When it gets hot, it cleans the metal and makes sure the solder will flow and stick properly. I'm not showing this step here, but I've dry fit this to make sure I've got everything in the right location. Get your propane torch out and start heating everything up. The general rule of thumb is solder goes where it's hottest. So if you spend your time heating up the fitting, which is what I want the solder to go inside of the small gap between the fitting and the pipe itself. So this may take 20 seconds to heat this up. It goes real fast. Make sure you get a liberal amount of solder in there. You don't have to put the solder all the way around. It will find the gaps and fill it up. The larger the fitting, the more you have to heat it up. This coupling here, this 1-inch PVC or threaded coupling to the 3/4 inch pipe. It's a bit heavy, so I'm gonna have to heat this up a little bit more. Reason I'm doing this now before it is on the PVC is I don't want to melt the PVC. So here's a little tip for you, is solder your copper fittings in first, let it cool, then put some plumber's putty on the threads, and then screw that into your PVC. Otherwise, that thing is going to get so hot, it's going to start to melt the PVC, and you're going to lose any kind of watertight seal that you have. So I've learned this the hard way over the years here. If you're having to hook metal to plastic, solder these or sweat these joints together first before you put it on there. If you can kind of see the flux doing its work there. It's kind of cleaning that metal around where the solder is. So that's a very, very important step. And I'm probably putting a little bit too much solder on here, but I just don't want this thing to leak on me, so I'm going a little hog wild here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see the inside of that pipe, and you can see how the solder has actually come through between the joint between the fitting and the pipe, and made a very, very good seal for us. Now that the pipe has been soldered, it's cooled, I've been able to screw it into that fitting, the PVC fitting. That's the one joint I have to solder there, sweat it a little later on, and the T I'm going to have to put in a little later on. That's going to come in phase 2 of the installation. So another little pipe run we have to make here. There's a straight section of pipe, goes into the threaded joint, and it gets hooked into the PVC. Again, I soldered all this together before I put it to the PVC to avoid any risk of melting that PVC pipe. I can't put this in yet until I actually cut the main water line. And you can see how I've got kind of the general arrangement here. I want the the outlet of the sediment filter be really aligned with the inlet of the carbon filter. I can't make that yet because of the pipe was in the way. All right, 48 hours later, step 6, installation phase 2. Rinse the carbon filter, cut the main water supply to your house, connect up all the pipe runs, turn the water back on, inspect for leaks, then soak your salt-free water conditioner, and then turn all filters on. If I went too fast here, this is all in your owner's manual. It tells you how to do this step by step. Right now, I'm actually washing the carbon filter, so I hook my brand new hose back up to the inlet side. I'm letting this sucker run for about 15 minutes. When you turn the water on, it's going to be kind of a blackish water. I'm filling a little champagne glass here, and you can see it's kind of murky and whatnot. Just let it run for about 15 minutes, maybe half an hour. Trust me, it will clean itself up. Unfortunately, the company did not give me a secondary little nozzle there, so I have water spilling all over my basement floor. So after about 15 to 30 minutes, repeat the process for about a minute, but put the water on the outlet side, so you're kind of backwashing your carbon filter. I'll put a plastic bag to keep everything from leaking. All right, guys, now it's time to cut your main water supply. Make sure you don't have any water needs. Make sure you don't have anybody on medical that needs water, or somebody that's about to cook dinner or whatever. You got no water in your house, make sure you have a fire extinguisher nearby. This is the point of no return. If you're not comfortable with piping, now's the time to call a plumber, but you can do it if you really take your time. My main water is out at the street. Let me see if I can get a wrench and turn that little quarter valve. I already did it, but basically that's how you turn your main water off. Turn some sinks on in your house, some faucets on in your house, and turn some water faucets as low as you can below where you're going to cut. You've got to drain your system. It may take an hour for you to drain your whole house. All right, now I'm going to cut the main line to my my copper. I'm actually going to make a couple cuts. The small pipe that you see going to the wall is actually going out to the outside faucet. I don't want that running through my water filter. That's for washing cars. I'm not going to put expensive water through that. I'm cutting the main line right here, again using this neat little pipe cutter. I'm going to cut the top piece and remove about 4 feet worth of pipe. I'll show you when this is all said and done. About 6 inches below that, I'm going to cut it again. I'm going to put a T-fitting in there that you can now see. So that basically the water comes in from the very bottom, comes up through a T-fitting, goes off to the goes straight up to a little pressure gauge that I put on there to the left-hand side, goes to my sediment filter, goes to that pipe that I just created, into the inlet side of the carbon filter, that manifold piece at the very top, through the conditioner, out the conditioner, and up to my main house. So that's actually where I made my second main line cut, is to remove all that section. I welded that elbow right into place, or soldered it, I should say, or sweated it. There's one valve there for the sediment filter, and the other one is on the far right-hand side, so I can isolate the sediment filter. This is what I was talking about earlier, is trying to get all of your lines nice and in line so you can reduce the number of elbows and the number of turns that you have to make. This actually, I think, is a perfect installation here. Minimum number of elbows, straight shots, good clean joints, good soldered joints. Now that you have it installed, it's time to soak the rinse filter. There's a bunch of steps here, but they're all pretty short and simple. First, set the carbon filter to bypass. Look at your owner's manual if you don't know what that means. Turn the conditioner filter to filter. Turn your main house water supply back on. Make sure all your faucets in your house are closed. Then open a faucet close to the filter to fill the tank. You're going to hear a bunch of air spilling out of that as the filter fills up. That's okay. It takes maybe a minute or two to fill your conditioner tank. Once the air is bled from the system, turn off your water faucet, turn the conditioner to bypass. So leave both valves in the bypass for about 1 hour. Your water pressure is on, so now you can check for leaks. You can purge the house of your water lines. Remember, you drained all the water out of your lines, so go upstairs or wherever your toilets are and your sinks are and turn all the water on to bleed the air out of them. After 1 hour, do not skip that. Turn the conditioner valve to filter. Then turn 3 faucets on very high for about 5 minutes and put this on the cold water. You do not want to have this murky water going through your hot water tanks. It's going to be nasty looking, trust me. After about 5 minutes or so, the water will clean up and it'll be nice and clear. Then turn all your faucets off, but leave one of them on for about a quarter of the way. to kind of run your water through the conditioner for about 60 minutes. Do not bypass that step. After 60 minutes, turn the faucet off and turn your carbon filter valve to filter. So both filters should now be in the filter position, meaning you're going to be running water through your carbon filter, then through the conditioner, of course through the sediment filter as well. Now your system is really, you're done at this point. You're pretty much have all of your installation ready. So at this point, after the rinse process, you're done. Take a shower. After 4 hours underneath the house or wherever, you probably need one by now. At least I know I did. I actually waited about a day or two before drinking the water. Took a few showers, got the system kind of nice and stabilized, got the water running through the filters, and I was able to drink the water. A couple things to expect during the installation is when you're washing your carbon filter, you're going to see some black murky water coming out of there through the first few minutes. This will freak you out, but it's just carbon. It won't kill you, obviously. Just take your time and let it rinse. It will clear up. When you're washing your conditioner, it's even nastier looking milky water and doesn't smell real good. But after about 5 minutes, it cleans up to crystal clear. So just take your time and don't let that freak you out. Over time, you might see some small sediment particles coming out of your sink. I haven't had this. I've had my filter on for almost 3 or 4 days now, but the owner's manual says that this might actually happen. Best thing to expect is some clear, odor-free, and really great tasting water. The water that I'm getting out of my system here, I swear it's better than Evian water, bottled water. I really love the results that I'm getting with this filter here. Some maintenance for the first week. Every day, go check your system for leaks. Even though it wasn't leaking the first 5 minutes, but after you flush a toilet and you build up some pressure and you shock your system with that shock of pressure, you may develop some leaks. You're just going to have to fix them if you get to them. If it's in the copper, you can sweat them back together. If it's in the PVC, you're probably going to have to tear the PVC off and redo it. If it's in the joints within the PVC to threaded, you're probably going to have to tear those off. Also, a couple other things to do is after about a month, check your water again to make sure it's not leaking. Your system is not leaking as well. 6 to 9 months into it, change your sediment filters. Read your owner's manual for the exact time. I plan on doing mine about every 9. We actually have very good water in our area. After 5 years, you're going to need to replace the carbon in your carbon filter. So if you bookmark my site, in 5 years, I'm going to reshoot another video on how to change the carbon media. So stick around for more. That's it, folks. Thanks for watching, and don't hesitate to comment. Thanks.